A millionaire came home without notice and froze at what the black maid was doing to his son. That afternoon, Alexander Carter came home a day earlier than planned. He was supposed to spend the entire week in Milan attending an international architecture conference. But after the final discussion, he decided to change his flight, eager to surprise his son with an unannounced return. Stepping into the silent mansion, Alexander expected to hear the familiar patter of little feet rushing toward him, Lucas throwing himself into his arms as he always did whenever his father came back from a trip. Instead, the house echoed with something else. Laughter, bright, innocent, ringing with pure joy. It made Alexander freeze. He followed the sound, stopping at the kitchen doorway, and his heart clenched. On the polished marble sink sat Lucas, swinging his small legs in warm, soapy water. The boy giggled uncontrollably, chasing bubbles floating in the air, popping them with delight. Beside him was Elena, dressed in her modest uniform, sleeves rolled up, softly singing an old lullaby in a warm, melodic voice. "Sleep now, my child. Sleep, my little son." Alexander stood still. How long had it been since he last heard his son laugh like that? How long since this house had been filled with warmth and joy? Lucas looked up, eyes sparkling. "Mama Elena, more bubbles, please?" Alexander felt his feet rooted to the ground. Mama Elena. Those two words cut into his chest like a blade. His son, who had never truly known a mother, was now calling Elena by that sacred name. Unaware of his presence, Elena gently lathered Lucas's soft hair, wiped his face with a fluffy white towel, and whispered tenderly, "Do you like the warm water, my little prince?" "Yes. And will you read me the dragon story after?" "Of course, darling. But first, dinner. I've made your favorite star-shaped pasta." Each word from Elena pierced Alexander's heart. When was the last time he had spoken to Lucas with such tenderness? When had he last made his child smile with a simple promise of a bedtime story? After the bath, Elena lifted Lucas out, wrapping him in a soft blue towel. The boy clung to her naturally, as if her arms were the safest place in the world. Lucas looked up and saw him, but instead of running toward Alexander as he used to, the boy clung even tighter to Elena. "Mr. Carter," Elena started, her cheeks flushing red. "We didn't expect you back before tomorrow." Alexander stepped slowly into the kitchen, his eyes shifting between his son and the woman holding him. The dining table was carefully set, a tablecloth with playful animal patterns, a special divided plate so the food wouldn't touch, something Alexander had never known bothered Lucas, and a cup with a curved straw. "It seems the two of you have already settled into a routine," Alexander said, his voice colder than he intended. Elena lowered her eyes. "The boy likes stability. Children need—" "Don't tell me what my son needs." The words came out harsher than he meant. He saw Elena flinch slightly, but Lucas frowned. "Don't yell at Mommy Elena." The silence that followed was deafening. Alexander felt as if he'd been punched in the stomach. Mommy Elena, his 4-year-old son, who barely remembered his real mother, had found a mother figure in the maid. "Lucas," Elena said gently, "your dad isn't yelling at me. He's just tired from the trip. Go to your room and get your superhero pajamas while I finish dinner, okay? Mommy will come in a moment, little prince." Lucas nodded and ran off, but before leaving, he kissed Elena on the cheek, breaking Alexander's heart a little more. When only the two of them remained, Elena still kept her eyes lowered. "Mr. Carter, I never intended for the boy to—" "How long have you been working here, Elena?" 3 months, sir." "And in those 3 months, you've done what I haven't managed in 4 years. Alexander walked over to the sink, staring at the bubbles still floating on the water. "My son loves you." Elena looked up, stunned by the softness in his voice. "The boy loves you too, sir," It's just that he doesn't know how to show it because you never taught him." Alexander closed his eyes. "Tomorrow I'll start looking for someone new, someone who maintains the proper professional distance." Elena's eyes brimmed with tears. "Please, don't." Her words were cut short by the heartbreaking cry from Lucas's room. "Mommy, Elena, I can't find my pajamas." The cry that followed was the real sobbing of a desperate child. Alexander had never heard his son cry like that. Elena rushed to the room, Alexander following close behind, his heart pounding. They found Lucas sitting on the floor, sobbing, surrounded by scattered clothes. "Hush, little prince, Mommy Elena is here." Elena knelt and held him. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" I thought you left like the others." Lucas sniffled, burying his face in her chest. Alexander felt the whole world stop. Like the others. His son had developed abandonment fears because he had fired 6 nannies in the past year, and now the only person giving the boy emotional stability, he was about to drive away. "Lucas!" Alexander came closer, kneeling beside them. "Mommy Elena isn't going anywhere." Elena looked at him in surprise. "At least, not until we find a solution," he said quietly. Watching his son calm in Elena's arms, Alexander realized how fragile everything had become. For the first time in years, he didn't know what to do. Later that evening, still weighed down by that moment, Alexander entered the dining room. The table was set with care, a playful cloth with animal prints, and a divided plate so the food wouldn't touch, details he had never noticed about his son. Lucas sat properly, eyes fixed on his plate of star-shaped pasta, while Elena gently adjusted his napkin. The atmosphere was so warm, so natural, that Alexander felt like an outsider in his own home. "Is it tasty, Lucas?" Elena asked with tender care. "Yes, Mama Elena, it's delicious." Alexander frowned slightly. "Mama Elena." Again. The word rang in his ears like a bell. Bitterness welled up inside him. For 4 years, he had tried to provide Lucas with the very best: schools, toys, a comfortable home. Yet in just 3 months, Elena had reached his son's heart with simple gestures Alexander had never thought of. Trying to hide his turmoil, Alexander sat at the head of the table. "Son, after dinner, would you like me to read you a story?" Lucas hesitated, his eyes flicking toward Elena, before nodding softly. "If you want to, but Mama Elena reads better." Those innocent words cut into Alexander like a knife. Dinner continued in silence. Alexander noticed every small detail. The way Elena cut the food into tiny pieces so Lucas could eat more easily. The way she slipped a short story in between bites to make him eat faster. The way she always listened patiently to every word the boy said. He had never done any of that. He had always believed that money and comfort were enough. But watching the two of them, he realized his son needed so much more. An embrace, a gentle voice, a warm presence he himself had lost long ago. That night, after Lucas had fallen asleep, Alexander sat alone in his study, his eyes heavy. He felt as though a stranger had stepped into his life and effortlessly taken the place that should have been his. But deep inside, he knew the truth. Elena had given Lucas something he could not. And that truth made Alexander's heart feel both grateful and afraid. A week had passed since Alexander promised Elena would not leave. 7 days he stood in the shadows, listening to bursts of laughter he himself had never created, feeling like a stranger in his own home. That morning, hidden behind his study door, Alexander observed the morning ritual that had become his secret obsession. "Let's see, little prince, what letter is this?" Elena held up a colorful flashcard in front of Lucas, who was sitting in his special chair eating toast cut into star shapes. "It's the letter M, like Lucas, and like Mommy Elena." Alexander clenched his fists tightly. Every time he heard that word, A mixture of jealousy and guilt gnawed at him from within. "Very good, Mommy's love. And what about this letter?" "P. like Papa." "That's right. Your dad works very hard to take care of you. He's a very special man." Alexander was surprised. Elena had never spoken ill of him in front of Lucas, not even after his threat to fire her. In fact, she made an effort to keep the image of a father alive in the boy's mind. "Mommy Elena, why doesn't Daddy eat with me?" The question froze Alexander in place. Elena set the flashcard down and sighed softly. "Your dad has very important work, little prince, but I'm sure he would love to have breakfast with you one day." "Let's ask Daddy." Before Elena could answer, the sharp sound of high heels echoed through the foyer. Alexander recognized it instantly. His mother had arrived. "Alexander, where are you?" It was Margaret Carter, his mother. At 60, she remained a woman of power, silver hair perfectly styled, a sleek black Chanel dress, and eyes so piercing they had terrified many household staff over the years. Elena stiffened. She quickly adjusted her uniform and whispered to Lucas, "Sweetheart, keep eating your breakfast." But Lucas clung to her hand, his face lighting up when he saw his grandmother enter. "Grandma, this is Mama Elena. She's teaching me the letters." The room seemed to freeze. Margaret's face hardened instantly, her cold gaze sweeping across every detail. Lucas's crayon drawings taped to the fridge, the fresh flowers on the table, and most of all, the boy clutching Elena's hand as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "So, you must be the famous Elena my grandson has been talking about," Margaret said, her voice dripping with disdain. "A few months in this house, and you allow my grandson to call you mother?" Elena lowered her head, her voice trembling. "Madam, I never intended—" "Silence!" Margaret cut her off sharply. "A servant should know her place." Suddenly, Lucas stepped forward, planting himself protectively in front of Elena, his little fists clenched tight. "Don't yell at Mama Elena. She's good." Alexander saw Elena struggling to hold back tears, Lucas trembling with confusion and anger, while his mother was slowly processing the fact that her grandson was fiercely defending the maid. "Lucas," Alexander came to his son, kneeling down to meet his eyes. "Grandma isn't scolding, she's just worried." "Why?" "Because she loves you very much and wants to make sure you're well cared for." Lucas looked at his grandmother, then at Elena, then at his father. "But I am being well cared for. Mommy Elena makes me happy." The boy's words hung in the air like an accusation. Alexander felt the weight in his mother's gaze, filled with everything she left unsaid. Why can a stranger make your son happy when you cannot? The doorbell rang, shattering the heavy silence. "I'll get it." Elena mumbled, clearly desperate for a way out. A few days later, with tension still lingering in the Carter household, Elena took Lucas to the nearby park on a sunny morning. The boy laughed brightly, running around, chasing the falling leaves from tall trees. Lucas was playing tag when he suddenly stopped, clutching his chest, his breathing shallow and wheezy. Elena noticed immediately, his lips pale, his breath raspy. "Lucas, what's wrong?" Elena cried, dropping to her knees beside him. I can't breathe." Without hesitation, Elena scooped him into her arms, darted into the street, and waved down the first taxi she saw. "To the hospital as fast as you can." In her arms, Lucas struggled for every breath, tears welling in his eyes. Elena held him tightly, whispering soothing words. "I'm here, Lucas. You're going to be okay. I won't let you go." When Alexander received the call from the hospital, his world froze. His blood ran cold as the doctor informed him. Lucas had been rushed in with a severe asthma attack. He sped to the hospital. In the emergency room, Alexander saw Elena by Lucas's bedside, her uniform damp with sweat and tears, her hand never leaving his. An oxygen mask covered the boy's face, the hiss of the nebulizer filling the air. "Daddy!" Lucas stretched out his hand toward him. Alexander rushed over. "What's wrong? What happened?" He knelt beside the stretcher, his heart pounding like a drum. "The symptoms started a few days ago," Elena said quickly. "Wheezing at night, a little shortness of breath after playing. I thought it was just a cold, but this morning at the park it got much worse." "Why didn't you tell me?" Elena lowered her head. "You were busy in meetings all the time. I didn't want to bother you since I thought it was only a cold." Alexander's chest tightened with guilt. It was true. He had been avoiding home, burying himself in work to escape his tangled feelings for Elena and the pressure from Daniel demanding an answer. The doctor arrived with a reassuring smile. "The good news, Lucas is responding very well to the medication, but we need to discuss a long-term asthma management plan." "Asthma?" Alexander frowned. "How long has my son had this?" "According to Ms. Morales, symptoms have appeared on and off for a few months. Did anyone notice nighttime coughing, fatigue after exercise, or slight shortness of breath?" Alexander was speechless. Elena bit her lip and whispered, "I did notice some things, but I thought they were normal in children. Coughing at night, getting tired quickly while playing ball." "You saw everything, and I saw nothing." Alexander felt like the worst father alive. "Mr. Carter," the doctor said tactfully, "it's very common for early asthma symptoms in children to be overlooked, especially when mild. What matters now is that we can set up the right treatment plan." Over the next 4 hours, as Lucas recovered and the doctor adjusted the medication, Alexander witnessed something that left him silent. Elena never left his son's side. She sang softly, told stories, stroked his forehead when he ran a slight fever, soothed him when he was afraid of the machines. It was the perfect image of a mother, and Alexander realized he was completely unnecessary in that equation. "Mommy, Elena," Lucas murmured sleepily as the medicine began to take effect. "You'll stay with me, right?" "Always," Elena whispered, kissing his forehead. "I'll always be here when you need me." It was a promise Alexander knew she couldn't keep, not with his mother pressuring her to leave, not with the gulf of social class standing like an abyss between them. At 11 that night, they brought Lucas home. Elena insisted on staying awake to check his breathing every 2 hours, following the doctor's orders as if by the book. At 3 in the morning, Alexander found her sitting on a chair beside Lucas's bed, her head drooping uncomfortably, clearly fighting off sleep. "Elena?" he whispered, waking her gently. She startled awake, immediately checking on Lucas before breathing a sigh of relief. "How is he?" "His breathing is steady now, but your neck will be sore if you sleep like that." Elena rubbed her neck and winced. "I'm fine. I just want to be sure. You should go rest. I'll stay with him." "But the doctor said to check every 2 hours. "I know, I heard him." Alexander sat down in her chair. "Go sleep, Elena. You've done more than enough today." Elena hesitated, glancing between Alexander and Lucas. "You're sure you know what to look out for? If he breathes too fast or if there's wheezing?" "Elena!" Alexander looked straight into her eyes. "I trust you've taught me enough to take care of my son." The softness in his voice made her freeze. After Elena left, Alexander sat in the dark, listening to the steady breathing of his son, thinking about how he had almost lost the boy that afternoon, and realizing that he was also about to lose Elena because of his own cowardice. The problem was that Alexander had built his life on control, logic, and reasonable decisions. But love was never reasonable, and for the first time in his life, he loved beyond all rescue. The phone vibrated. His assistant had texted, "The Madrid offer is still valid. A response is needed today." Madrid, the position he had dreamed of for years, regional director, double the salary, a new life, everything he had worked for. But Madrid also meant leaving Barcelona, taking Lucas away from the team of doctors who had just understood his illness, leaving the home where the boy had finally found happiness, leaving Elena. "Daddy, why are you sad?" Lucas looked at him. "I'm not sad, little prince. I'm just thinking about Mommy Elena." The perceptiveness of a 4-year-old never ceased to amaze him. "Why do you ask that?" Lucas placed his tiny hands on his father's cheeks. "Because every time you think about Mommy Elena, your face looks like mine when I can't breathe, like something hurts inside." Alexander's heart shattered. How could he explain to a 4-year-old that sometimes loving someone hurt more than not having them at all? "Lucas, do you want Mommy Elena to stay with us?" "Yes," the answer burst out immediately, fierce and certain. "But can she stay?" "Daddy, why don't you just ask Mommy Elena to marry you?" Alexander nearly choked. "Lucas, that's complicated." "Why? You love Mommy. Mommy loves you. I love both of you. Isn't that enough?" If only life were that simple. But maybe, just maybe, it really was. Alexander sighed softly. "Go to sleep, my love. It's late." Then he stroked Lucas's hair, soothing him into slumber. In the days that followed, the Carter household returned to quiet. But inside, Alexander, a storm was rising. He knew he couldn't let the silence linger. His heart had already chosen. He only needed the courage to speak. One evening, after Lucas had gone to bed, Alexander entered the living room where Elena was tidying up toys. He paused, watching her patiently gather scattered Lego pieces before speaking softly. "Elena, there's something I need to tell you." She looked up, her eyes cautious. "Yes, Mr. Carter?" Alexander gave a faint smile and shook his head. "Call me Alexander. Don't call me Mr. Carter anymore." Elena blinked, momentarily flustered. He had never asked that before. Alexander stepped closer, his heart pounding in his chest. "They offered me a position in Madrid as regional director. It's the opportunity I've dreamed of for years. But I turned it down." Elena gasped. "Why?" "Because I realized everything I need is right here, in this house, with Lucas, and with you." His voice faltered. He sat down in front of her, gently taking her trembling hands into his. "I love you, Elena Morales. I love the way you care for my son as if he were your own. I love your kindness, your laughter, and the way you've turned this cold house into a home." Tears streamed down Elena's cheeks. "Alexander, please don't. You're not only a housekeeper," he interrupted, his eyes burning with sincerity. "You're the woman who makes me want to live again." Suddenly, Lucas dashed down the stairs, his eyes sparkling. "Dad, propose to her. Make Mama Elena my real mom." Alexander chuckled through the tension. He turned back to Elena, then lowered himself to one knee. "Elena Morales, will you marry me? Not for Lucas, not out of duty, but because I cannot imagine my life without you." Elena covered her mouth, tears spilling endlessly. Lucas jumped up and down, cheering. "Say yes, Mama Elena." Elena laughed through her tears, looking between Alexander and Lucas. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I will." Alexander rose and kissed her. Lucas wrapped his arms tightly around them both, while Margaret quietly dabbed at her eyes. For the first time in years, the Carter family felt whole. The wedding day arrived, and the Carter garden bloomed with white roses and warm golden lights. There was no need for a grand cathedral ceremony. Alexander and Elena chose to celebrate in the very place that had witnessed their journey. A house once cold, now overflowing with love. Lucas wore a tiny suit, serving as honorary best man, proudly carrying the wedding rings. He ran around, reminding everyone, "Remember, today, Mama Elena officially becomes my mom." Elena appeared in a pure white gown, her face radiant with joy. Alexander waited at the altar, his eyes never leaving her. When their gazes met, every barrier, every doubt that once divided them, vanished. The ceremony unfolded to gentle music. Alexander held Elena's hands, his voice thick with emotion. "I vow to love and protect you, just as you have loved and protected Lucas. And I promise to stay by your side and his forever," Elena replied, her tears shimmering. As applause echoed, Margaret stood quietly at the edge of the garden. She had seen it all, from her first suspicions to the undeniable love Elena had given her grandson and her son. After the vows, she approached Elena, her eyes softer than ever before. "Elena?" Her voice trembled, so unlike her usual stern tone. "I was wrong to look at you with doubt. I thought you were just an outsider trying to take a place in this family. But today, seeing the way Lucas and Alexander look at you, I know I misjudged you." Elena, deeply moved, shook her head quickly. "Madam, I never wanted to replace anyone. I only wanted Lucas to be happy." Margaret placed a hand on her shoulder, her voice breaking. "And you've given him what neither Alexander nor I could." "I'm sorry, Elena. Thank you for bringing laughter back into this home." In that moment, Elena burst into tears, embracing Margaret tightly. Amid the clapping and Lucas's joyful cheers, 3 generations of the Carter family finally stood united, opening a brand new chapter together. 8 months later, the scent of basil and vanilla filled the house. Elena, now Elena Carter, supervised the preparations for Lucas's 4th birthday. Her hand rested unconsciously on her belly, where a tiny miracle was growing each day. "Mommy, are the guests here yet?" Lucas ran into the kitchen, wearing his new superhero costume, his colorful inhaler hanging from a strap he had proudly chosen himself. "Not yet, little prince, but Grandma Margaret is finishing the decorations in the garden." Everything had changed so wonderfully. Margaret, who had once seen Elena as a threat, now loved her like a daughter. It was she who had insisted on holding the wedding right there in the kitchen where it had all begun, crying more than anyone and the first to notice the signs of Elena's pregnancy. "Elena, where should I put the cake?" Carmen, the new maid they had hired to help with heavier chores, was carrying an elaborate castle-shaped cake. "On the table outside in the garden." "And Carmen, how many times have I told you to call me Elena?" "Oh no, Mrs. Carter," Carmen smiled. The woman in her 50s, who had worked for many wealthy families, felt at ease with the simplicity of her new employers. Old habits die hard, though I must say I've never seen a lady of the house insist on washing the breakfast dishes herself. Elena laughed. Some habits were hard to change. After months of working as a maid in this very house, part of her still found it strange to be treated as the lady. "Daddy!" Lucas burst in just as Alexander walked into the kitchen, already dressed for the party. "How's Daddy's superhero?" Alexander scooped him up, spinning him around until the boy laughed with delight. "Careful with his breathing," Elena reminded out of instinct, though smiling all the while. "I'm fine, Mommy," Lucas reassured her. "The doctor said as long as I take my medicine, I can do everything like the other kids." And it was true. With the right treatment plan and close monitoring, Lucas's asthma was now stable. Alexander had learned to give the medication, to recognize early warning signs, and had even taken a first aid course. "How was the meeting?" Elena came closer, and Alexander wrapped an arm around her, his hand naturally finding its way to her belly. "Good. The Barcelona project was approved, which means I'll be traveling much less in the coming months." "Perfect timing." Elena smiled, intertwining her fingers with his. "Have you told him yet?" Lucas's eyes lit up. "Told me what?" Alexander looked between his wife and his son, curious. Elena clasped his hand, her eyes shimmering with joy. "Alexander, the baby is a girl." He froze for a moment, then a smile spread across his face like sunrise. A little girl. A daughter. Lucas jumped excitedly. I'll have a sister to take care of. Alexander kissed Elena deeply. Lucas wrapped his arms around them both. Have you chosen a name? Carmen asked kindly from the side. We thought of Carmen after my grandmother, Elena said, glancing at Alexander, but we also liked… Sophia, Lucas interrupted, like Princess Sophia, but our Sophia will be even braver. Alexander and Elena laughed, their eyes meeting. Sophia Carter, Alexander tried out. I like it. The doorbell rang. The first guests had arrived. Lucas ran off to open it, while Alexander held Elena's hand. Did you ever imagine your life would turn this way when you first took the job of looking after a difficult child? Elena laughed, remembering those first days when Alexander saw her as nothing more than another employee, while she herself fought against feelings she once thought impossible. Do you know what the real miracle is? Elena looked toward Lucas, who was greeting his friends with the confidence of a truly happy child. It's not just that I cared for Lucas. It's that he helped us find each other. Daddy, Mommy, come out. My friends want to meet the baby, Lucas called from the garden. She isn't born yet, little prince, Elena called back with a laugh. But she's here. You can talk to her. Hand in hand, Alexander and Elena stepped into the garden, where Margaret was organizing games for the children. Carmen handed out snacks with a warm smile, and Lucas seriously explained to his friends how he would teach his baby sister to use an inhaler if she ever needed it. It was the kind of family Elena had once dreamed of as a child, the kind of home Alexander thought impossible after losing his first wife, the kind of love neither of them believed they deserved. When Lucas blew out the candles, Elena leaned in and asked quietly, "What did you wish for?" The boy grinned, eyes sparkling. "I wished that our family would always stay together, me, Dad, Mama, and my baby sister." Alexander hugged his son, then looked at Elena. He whispered, "That wish has already come true, son." In that moment, Elena realized, sometimes family isn't built by blood, but by love and choice. And that very love had turned a once cold house into a home no one could ever replace. Love doesn't always arrive the way we expect. Sometimes it enters quietly, hidden in laughter, in small acts of care, or in the warmth of a lullaby sung in the kitchen. That was the miracle that transformed the Carter family. Alexander found the courage to love again. Elena discovered the family she never dreamed she'd have, and Lucas finally felt the unconditional embrace of a mother's love. Their journey reminds us that family is not only built by blood, but by love, choice, and the willingness to fight for one another. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who believes in love, and subscribe to our channel. Your support means the world to us and helps us create more heartfelt stories that celebrate love, family, and hope. And remember, sometimes the most beautiful stories begin not with perfection, but with the courage to open your heart.